HRN listeners. As we celebrate our 15th year, we are deepening our commitment to giving voice to the next generation of food systems storytellers, and we need your help. Our internship and fellowship programs help activate new possibilities for underrepresented and underestimated young people through experiential journalism, audio engineering, and production training. Through these unique programs, HRN helps food equity stewards build essential workforce readiness skills that expand their potential and foster economic mobility. Please consider supporting these critical programs. And with a minimum donation, you can be entered to win a dinner for two at an amazing restaurant in one of 8 cities and tickets to a concert at a great venue in one of those cities. We have incredible partners across the country who have donated, as they also share our passion for helping to educate the next generation of food systems storytellers. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. And make sure you donate before March 31st. Thank you.
Hey everybody, we're kicking off day 3 here at the Charleston Wine and Food Festival from the Le Creuset podcast studio with Heritage Radio Network. I'm Harry Rosenblum, I host Feast Your Ears, and you can check out everything we're doing here. We've been here for 2 full days. This is day 3 at heritageradionetwork.org/Charleston 2019. Our sponsors today are Le Creuset and the Julia Child Foundation. Thank you both for making Heritage Radio Network on tour at Charleston Wine and Food possible. I'm super excited to be here today. It's getting hot out here, and we're a little warm in the studio. And we're going to talk about cooking with fire and cast iron, both of which are really hot things. I am joined by Dennis Powell, who is the founder and owner of Butter Pat Industries, who are making incredible, excellent, they feel great, and they cook even better cast iron skillets, which is really an ancient piece of technology. But Dennis has started to reproduce them starting in 2013. And I am with Steve Schoettle, who runs Sea Island Forge, has also been in the construction business as a contractor, does architectural metalwork, and starting in 2014, started producing the Sea Island Forge, which is an incredible fire kettle cooker that has lots of accessories. It has a griddle, it has a grill grate, it's a fire pit. It's awesome. And if you listen to some of the interviews that I've done over the past few days over with Springer Mountain Chicken, that's what we were talking about there, because that's what they were cooking on. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me.
Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it. So what's the difference between what you make and what I make? You make something that's forged, and I make something that's cast, and we do not do the same thing, correct?
Our kettle is cast ductile iron, but aside from that, we forge and fabricate all the accessories from the stands to the hand-forged Black Banks oyster knife that we were runner-up in Garden Gun Magazine Made in the South Awards. So it's a combination for us of the forging the accessories around the kettle that is cast.
So just so the listeners understand, Butter Pat Industries makes cast iron skillets, which range in size from, I think you have a little 2-inch one. Is that right, Dennis?
We have a little, we call that the quail egg skillet. Yeah, I'd say that up to 14 inches.
Up to a 14-inch. And
sizes.
On the other sort of end of the spectrum, those would all fit in my apartment in Brooklyn. Steve, what you guys make will not fit in my apartment in Brooklyn. I don't think your sizes are a 30-gallon and a 50-gallon. Is that right?
That is correct. The 30-gallon kettle weighs 175 pounds, just the bowl, and the 50-gallon kettle weighs 300 pounds, just the bowl. So they're stout, but they're designed to be that way. And ours, another major difference is ours is designed to have the fire in it. So ours is the fire vessel versus the Butter Pat pan, which you would cook over the fire vessel.
Right. I think there's a great marriage there, because both of these things we're talking about, they're both somewhat elemental, right? We're talking about iron, we're talking about fire, We're talking about cooking. We're talking about sort of basic, very, ultimately basic things.
We're sort of we're neighbors in terms of our materials, but we're not the same material. I mean, our
Sure.
even your ductile iron is different than our iron. If you drop our pan, it will crack and
Right.
break.
Of course.
If you drop your bowl, it will not crack and break, except your foot.
Yes. We have impact tested our larger 50-gallon. We raised it up off the concrete shop floor 5 feet
Dropped it
with a
down.
forklift and push it off on the concrete floor. Loud noise and chip the
Right.
concrete.
Yeah.
And that's a structural difference between the metal of what he uses and what I use.
Yeah.
And it's also a difference in if he were to make a pan out of his ductile iron, it would not perform the way our iron performs.
Right,
It's a
for
different
sure.
material and it has different cooking qualities.
Sure. And I'd love to hear a little bit about how you each got started. So, Steve, you had a construction, or still have a construction company, right?
We don't do any more general contracting. We still do lots of commission pieces for architects and interior designers.
I see.
And high-end houses. But Sea Island Forge was pretty much mine and my wife's exit strategy from the general contracting and more into the artistic and just what we enjoy. Now we get to go to amazing events and travel and meet amazing people like you guys and taste great flavors.
Yeah.
So this, now that our kids are gone and out of the house, this was our plan and our strategy, to get out of construction.
But you also have I've been speaking with a number of the people on your team, and it's a pretty small team. So if you guys are all here, no kettles are being manufactured, right?
No, we still have a team back at the
Oh, you do?
studio, back at the
Excellent.
forge. They're taking today off, but they'll be hard at it again tomorrow. So even while we're on the road, things are still happening back at the forge.
And you guys make about 150 pieces a year at this point. Is that about right?
Last year, I think we sold between 400 and 450 kettles.
Oh, okay.
And
Got
this year, we're predicting between 800 and 1,000 kettles.
Wow. So you're churning out like 3-4 pieces a day.
Yeah, and then that's just the bowl. That's not the accessories like the griddle, the grill, the adjustable height grill, which is a cool piece. It's got a patent pending lift system that will articulate in the X, Y, and Z axis. So
It's very cool.
Pretty cool.
I definitely drooled a little bit. Sorry, I drooled on one earlier, but really, really cool. I would love to have one. I can't quite fit it in my Brooklyn backyard, but I do have a house outside the city, so definitely thinking about what I can do to get one up there to Rhode Island. And so, Dennis, your history with cast iron personally goes way back. I mean, your family obviously had it. You talk on your site. In 2013, your grandmother's 19th century cast iron skillet cracked, and that led to creating Butterpat. But you also were a dealer. You sold cast iron in the past.
I did. I owned a hardware store while I was in college in Minneapolis, and we were the largest lodge dealer west of the Mississippi because we were slightly over the river.
Right.
And when I was just out of high school, I'd hiked the Appalachian Trail. I carried a cast iron pan on that entire trip. My first stove, when I moved out of the house, was a home comfort wood stove. So my mother gave me my grandmother's pan with absolutely no sense of ceremony. I mean, it was, we make a big deal out of it now, but
Sure.
It was not a big deal. My
You needed a pan.
I needed a pan.
Yeah.
My mother looked in and said, "You want this piece of crap that's sitting here? It's Granny's pan, but it was in our family. There was no sense of heirloom or treasure about it. My grandmother called them an old black pan.
Right.
So it was only through using it every day of my life from that day forward that when it cracked, you knew that you'd lost that connection
Sure.
to your past and to the people that were gone.
Right.
So my impetus for originally making a pan was to find out why her pan was different than what was available now, and to just cast a couple of them and to give them to my kids. It wasn't a commercial venture.
Right.
I mean, it was an obsession I'm an architect by training, also in the construction business, and it was only much more recently that I decided that I'd reform out of that business and concentrate on this one. So.
And what did you find? So, I mean, tell me a little bit about what was different about her pan than the pans that were available in 2013 when it cracked.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because Lodge is I have an abundant and forever love of the company. I mean, the quality of their manufacturing process is above so many others. They've made a commitment to stay in South Pittsburgh when so many other companies went overseas with their products. Their product is very different from ours, and they're the only American manufacturer that was left in the country making cast iron when we started. The production that they had changed was to go to automatic molding machines. So hand cast iron was abandoned for speed of production. It takes us 21 days to make our product from iron to box. An automatic molding machine allows for something to be made in less than 2 hours.
Wow!
So that's the main main difference. Our specifications were that they had to be smoother than a certain roughness average. They had to be thinner than a certain number, and they had to be made in the United States. So it took us 20-some foundries before we found a partner that would even consider taking on a project with us.
Right, because they didn't know if they could make those specs.
Well, they knew they couldn't.
Right.
Is actually what happened. They said, in fact, it's not going to happen. So we entered into a research and development agreement to literally develop a process to produce the product. So it's when people say that that some of the newer cast iron is as similar as it can be to the old production. Really, that's not entirely true. I mean, ours are cast at this dimension. They're not polished down to this dimension. We make them to look this way, and that's the way they come out of the molds.
Yeah.
So we do make them in a completely different process, but they do resemble the dimensions and the specifications of the 19th century product. We say we're inspired by historic sources, but it's only possible by new technology.
Right.
We're not an old company.
Right.
I mean, we're using new technology to achieve results that cooks for 3,000 years have known that iron has certain qualities that we admire.
Yeah, I mean, I love on your site that you offer a 100-year warranty.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a joke about that. I mean, you could offer the same on your cooking vessels.
The way it's written, you might like this, Steve.
It's a little bit of a joke.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I love it. They offer a 100-year warranty to the original purchaser, but it can be transferred in a will.
Yes.
So if you will your
can
butter
will
pat
the warranty
to somebody,
with
so I
the
feel like
pan.
you could do the same thing because to talk about longevity of product. I mean, having seen now and been around a couple of your Sea Island forges, I mean, that thing is going to last. It's not going to go anywhere.
They are designed to be legacy pieces, heritage pieces, and they are designed to be passed down from generation to generation. And the memories that are attached to the kettle, we do recommend that when people buy the kettles that they put in their will who gets to inherit it so that their great-grandchildren aren't having staggering legal bills fighting over whose memories are more valuable than their cousins.
Absolutely. And yours also is based off of an older design, right? The kettle shape itself is based off of kettles for cooking down cane, right?
Yes, so they are definitely based off of the syrup kettle shape and also the festivity, because when you were back then when they were rendering the sugarcane syrup down, it was a festive time. It was 48 hours, 72 hours of just the whole town, the whole village coming together, and it was a celebration. So it's definitely homage to that celebration. The antiques were actually designed to have a fire under them and the liquid inside of them.
Sure.
And the liquid inside of them is what kept the metal stable from the heat underneath it. Ours are designed and engineered specifically to have the fire inside of them.
Right.
And that is why it's getting harder and harder to find the antique syrup kettles that aren't cracked or damaged.
Because people are making fires in them instead?
And they're not engineered and they're not designed for that.
Got it. Very interesting. Now, are you going to produce or have you produced any syrup kettles to go on top of the Sea Island Forge if people wanted to make their own syrup? Now?
Well, you could
I know
just
it's a
simply
huge process.
you could simply use a Sea Island Forge kettle on top of a Sea Island Forge kettle.
Got it.
Yes. So having it designed to have the fire inside of it is a much more demanding vessel than having the fire under it with the liquid inside of it. So you could just simply use another kettle.
Got it. Now let's talk about size for a second. So you have the 50 gallon, you have the 30 gallon. Are you planning to do anything smaller than that, or is that really the product line and then the accessories are the rest of it?
So I think in the future we're definitely considering doing something. We aren't going to be able to go too much smaller volumetrically, but we do have the opportunity to reduce the weight and make it more of like a tailgate setup.
Yep.
The 30 gallon isn't. It's heavy. With the stand, you're at 225 pounds. So 2 guys, 3 guys can easily load it into the back of a pickup truck.
Right.
Take it to the beach, take it to the farm, take it, to their friend's house for, tailgating, or take it to, the football game to tailgate.
Right. Yeah.
But, certainly to have something that would be a little bit lighter is something we're considering. But now having that weight is also important because when you get the fire burning in it, you now have 175 pounds of thermal mass, and it just turns the kettle into a big heat pump.
Right. Yeah. No, they're definitely, the chefs who are going to be out there cooking today as the heat is ratcheting up and it's been sunny since this morning are going to be sweating.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah,
But I also love the idea, being up in the north, I love the idea of having one of those in my yard when it's snowing out.
Yeah.
And getting a nice fire going in the snow, and the kids can, cooking up making coffee or hot chocolate there on the side of it, and that kind of thing. I would love to be able to do that.
There's nothing like being around a fire. It becomes it's moths to the flames.
Yeah.
Yeah, fire's in our DNA.
It is.
Yeah.
It's elemental.
And the scientific definition of fire meets all the requirements of life. It consumes energy, it consumes oxygen, and it can reproduce. So fire is a living, breathing entity.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to ask you, Dennis, about your sizing and why you moved away from... So cast iron skillets, for those who don't know, traditionally were sized by number, which isn't really
which did
related
not
to
mean
size.
anything.
It didn't
No.
mean anything,
No.
but a number 8 is your most popular size, and that's a historically 10 to 10.5 inch diameter skillet, depending on who was making it. But for over 100 years, sizing was done by numbers. But you moved away from that and gone to names.
It's actually interesting because the numbers started to show up on the pans as skillets became an industrial product. But interestingly enough, it was before we considered numbers to be standardized. They do not mean, they never meant inches.
Right, no, of course.
A number 10 was a symbol of a size. It was not a number.
Right.
It's hard for us to understand this because we're so oriented to sizing being something we all understand.
Sure.
But at the time, I'm not saying that there weren't rulers. There were rulers and there were numbers. But the number 10 pan on a Griswold fit the number 10 eye on a Griswold stove. The number 10 pan on a favorite stove and range company, Range, their number 10 fit their eye. The two 10s were not the same. So what happened is that you border over this time period where then suddenly wars come along. We need screws that fit everything.
Right.
Everything becomes standardized.
Sure.
The numbers then become standardized. When I started to make these, I said, well, what's a number 10?
Right.
It's not measured as 10. I'm being an iconoclast, I'm not going to follow that convention because it's too confusing.
Yep.
We measure ours exactly. They are exactly 12, 10, 14, 8 inches in diameter, exactly 10, 12 on the cooking surface. But the numbers are symbols, just like the old numbers were symbols.
Yeah.
So when we finish the model making process for one of our pans, I take a black magic marker, and I make a signature of the letter. that signature is then scanned into our design software, and that's the signature that is on the pan. So the H that I'm holding here was literally made with a magic marker onto a piece of paper, scanned in, cut into our molding process, and it's a way of for me personally of signing the object.
Sure.
We put numbers on the back of the pans. We're on radio, so I'm showing you.
Yeah, of course.
But people say, are we, is this an addition like a piece of sculpture? It's absolutely not. This is a heat number. It records the number of consecutive when we're making our product. So this represents a date and time. We use it to control our chemistry.
Sure.
The following number, in this case, we made 20 pans in that heat. So it's a way for us to immediately go back in our record keeping and say, this particular pan was made on this particular day.
Right.
I could check the chemistry and know if there was any variation in the chemistry, because iron is not pure iron.
Right.
It's made up of primarily five other elements.
I mean, it's a very interesting sort of throwback, though, to the pans of the 19th century, where the mold maker would have a symbol that was cast into the bottom of the pan. So if there was a problem,
you're insightful. Most people don't pick up on that, but that's the point. I mean, is that you're making something that 100 years from now, someone is going to look at this, and they're going to look for little tracks in the snow to tell you how it was made and why it was made. And we use the letters represent women's names.
Sure.
This is Heather, my foundry partner's wife. Lily is my wife's grandmother. That's our biggest pan. Our newest pan is ST, which is my grandmother's name. So obviously we think of them as being letters.
Yep.
But we represent them as people who were important to us.
Right.
So.
And they all have an exact number of inches. So now, if somebody wants a 12-inch skillet, they get a 12.
But you'd be surprised how many times I'm sure you have the same experience. They walk up and the first question people want to know is, what is the number? So how big is it? And I, again, being a little bit of a smart aleck, I say, well, it's this big.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, did you have a problem with how your eyes work? I mean, you're looking at it, you know how big it is.
I mean, so Steve,
do you need a number?
The Sea Island Forge is done by volume, because what you're casting is kettles, but most people, are trained to think of a grill, if you are going to grill with it, in inches. Right, we're sold an 18-inch Weber grill. We're sold, by what the sizing is that way. So I imagine you get a lot of, sort of questions about that.
Well, we do, but ours are, based volumetrically, because it's the homage to the antique syrup kettles.
Of course.
And so it's a 30-gallon and it's a 50-gallon, and then people will walk up to us and say, yes, I have my grandfather's 80-gallon from the Kehoe foundry. I have, a 100-gallon from the Columbus foundry, and so there's the heritage, and it's paying homage to that, but it's like Dennis Butterpat. It's a 12-inch pan. It's a 12-inch pan. It's a 30-gallon kettle. It holds 30 gallons.
Yeah,
it's an exact number.
Right.
Yeah, it's a calculation.
Yeah. So tell me about the accessories that are available. Was that part of it from the beginning, or did you start making the kettles for use with fire and then add in the accessories later?
Well, first and foremost, the kettles are fire pits. And then from there, you can accessorize them to your heart's content. You can personalize them with your property name on the lip, your family name on the lip. And it's just out of a love of hanging out with our kids around the fire. It became another way to generate valuable memories with our children, was cooking the food on the kettle. And then when we're done with dinner, going outside and roasting the s'mores on the kettle, on the stainless steel roasting forks that we make, or having our friends over, and having a beautifully hand-forged oyster knife in your hand that we made. It's about making the memories with your friends and your family, and that's where the value is. So, it's unplugging and doing something real and authentic.
Yeah, and managing that fire, right? I mean, it's a hands-on experience, and I love the fact that it is a place where people can come together around that fire pit, but then you can use it to make lunch or dinner or a snack or s'mores or whatever it is. But then it also just is a place to then sit around. It serves all of those things, and I really can imagine, starting that thing in the morning and having it run all day.
So we have had, several friends and family that will take the fire kettle, up to the North Carolina mountains for a week and a half, and that's all they use to cook on. And that's all they do up in the mountains. They hang out by the fire, they'll go take a hike in the woods, and then they'll come back home and, cook lunch over the kettle, and then come back later and cook dinner on the kettle. And then that night, hang out and have some wine and beers around the kettle and tell stories about the day. And it's just, it's about bringing people together. You can do it as simple as just a fire around the kettle, or you can get as complex as you want, like some of the amazing chefs here. You can even do wood-fired pizzas now on the kettle.
Yeah.
So we have accessories for all skill levels, from the homeowner up to the professional chef.
How often do you cook on one?
Not as often as I would like because I'm on the road a good bit.
Yeah, it seems like it.
And now that both our kids are gone and out of the house, it's bringing friends over and
Right.
And
I guess it's a lot to start up for just you and your wife.
But a lot of times it's just about hanging out by the fire for us and winding down after a great event, a great show. We are very hands-on. It's me in the forge a lot of the times with the guys hammering and welding, and my wife runs the office and coordinates the orders and all the logistics of coming to the shows and the moving parts. So it's we don't get to hang out around the kettle as much as we would like right now, but in the future,
that's the plan.
Yes, absolutely.
And do you have any? Have you made any that are in use in restaurants, like in regular use in restaurants?
Yes. We have Chef Corey Barr, who is a runner-up on the Food Network, is one of our brand ambassadors. Chris Hastings over in Birmingham is a tremendous ambassador for us. We have many restaurants that enjoy using them, that will take them to special events like this, or they just have them, in their restaurant quiver as a tool to use for special nights, special events, or special flavors.
Awesome. It's really it's really cool. Dennis, I wanted to ask you about sort of starting a manufacturing business in the 21st century, and were there any moments you started with the largest pan, right, the Lily?
We did.
And decided if you could get that one right, you could always move down into smaller pans. Were there any moments in it where it just wasn't really working for you?
Are you setting me up for this question? I know we didn't talk about this before we started the show, but keeping in mind that I did not start this as a business.
Right.
I started this as literally as an intellectual exercise to try to understand how was something done in the past and why couldn't it be done today.
Yeah.
That was really the question. So here are the specifications. This is what one looks like 150 years ago. And I would set up my tours to different foundries by taking a bag, putting an old pan in the bag, and then sitting down, going over the specifications with the foundry engineers. They would tell me it would not be possible to do it. And then I would pull the pan out of the bag, and I would say, so tell me why the hell 100 years ago they could do this, and you can't do it now.
Yeah.
In many cases, they didn't know. The technology had changed so much that there really wasn't a clear understanding of why it was not possible to make a wall thickness that was 09375, 3/32 thick. Why can you not make something as smooth as this? Eventually we understood it. I mean, it took almost 2 years and 22 foundries, but there is a
that must be like all the foundries that were left at the time.
They're all the foundries. They're all the foundries except for 3 on the East Coast.
Wow.
That are making a product that would be close to making meeting our
casting
specifications.
this particular kind of iron.
Well, casting iron.
Yeah.
There are many companies that cast other metals,
Yep.
but iron. Gray iron. We even in the foundry we don't call it cast iron. We call it gray iron.
Gray iron.
Comes out of the foundry. It's silver. It's not black. So the every day was a day of disaster. But in fact we went for 18 months. All of my money. all the money that my foundry partner had committed to the project, and never had a single cast pan that did not break or did not have a number of flaws. It sounds like a made-up story, but on the last day of our last casting of our R&D
Bank account was at zero.
we were all at zero. Everybody was zeroed out. We had a single success.
Amazing.
We keep it on our office. It's one of my two sons' pans, but it was we were chasing the wrong solution to a problem, and once we changed that made that change in the process, we were able to start to produce more of them, and then people started asking. Why are you doing this? And we decided that we would start with the big pan because that's the hardest one to make. It's a commercial. It's not a very good commercial decision, but again, I wasn't doing this for commercial reasons. We were doing it because we wanted to understand why was it so hard to do this.
Right.
So we started with the 14, then down to the 12, and we literally have started at the largest and moved to the smallest.
Right. And what is your production like now? I mean, how many units are you guys producing?
Well, we have 41 guys in the foundry, and we're almost at capacity. It's going to be a problem. I mean, we say we produce them in limited quantities, and I think some people think that's a marketing gimmick, but we really mean we produce them in limited quantities.
Sure.
And once we reach a certain threshold, we will not be able to make more of them. It's the answer to the reason for why old pans can't be made today is real estate. For every pan we make, it must stay in mold for almost half of the time that it takes to make it.
Yeah, the cool down process is just as important as the metallurgical alloy.
That's right.
Of what you're producing. So you have to give the metal time to generate the internal grain structure that gives it the stability.
Otherwise, you won't get the chemistry that you're looking for. And
sure.
So
and you won't be able to have the 100-year warranty.
Right.
Well, and it is the simple answer for we worked with an Amish foundry for a while who made perfectly acceptable products for us. We went back to them after they'd made them and said, "So how many can you make for us a month?" And they said, with a dead flat face, 7. And at that moment, I understood exactly what he meant. Up until then, I didn't understand why we could not make more.
Right.
It's not because of the process. It's because he didn't have the buildings or the real estate in order to house the molds that would be necessary in order to make our product.
Yeah.
And that's the reason. So it's a real estate.
And that presents a real conflict between trying to make a specific product and what the market fails to understand when you have that specific product. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, we both have people who feel that we're going to join in this race to the bottom of quality. I mean, we made a commitment from the very first day that we would make them here, not for political reasons. I mean, we make them here because I need to go to my foundry and talk to my men and women about what they make. I need to ask them questions. I can't do that with a ship and a telephone.
Yep.
So it was a lot of people don't understand that if you make that commitment, you're making a commitment to the regulations that we have to conform to as an American manufacturer. Yep. If we make something overseas, we're allowing other people to manufacture something in living conditions that we wouldn't find acceptable.
Yeah.
So that's going to add to the cost. And then you add for us the number of days that it takes to make something, and the quality level that we produce at. It's not going to be a $15 product.
Sure, and they aren't going to be in every store in America.
No, and frankly we don't care.
Yeah.
I mean our commitment is to make the highest quality product that we possibly can, to make them here in the United States and suffer the consequences of volume because of it.
Well, you both seem to be doing a very good job at both of those things. High quality heirloom pieces made in the United States, and I commend you both for that.
It's not about mass production. It's about making sure that you're representing your brand with the quality pieces that you want to represent, and not everybody is going to be a client of ours.
Right.
It's just, we're not going to sell.
When you're making
kettles
something
at Home Depot.
that's going to last 100 years, you realize that it's going to be here when you're not here, and likely your brand or your company is not going to be here
Sure.
either. And so I think that you have this promise, not to just yourself. You have this promise to your children that something that's
It's a
going
generational
to
promise.
It is. You're making a commitment to your children that something that you've made is something that they can continue to be proud of, not just for your generation, but for another generation.
Well, thank you both so much for joining me here. And there's a lot more food to try and a lot more beverages to drink. I feel like I drank a lot of them yesterday. I don't know about you gentlemen, but definitely there's a lot out there. But thank you so much. It's been really great.
Enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Wonderful time.
Thank you to Le Creuset and the Julia Child Foundation for making Heritage Radio Network on tour at Charleston Wine and Food possible. I'm Harry Rosenblum, the host of Feast Your Ears here for Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a member-supported nonprofit based in Bushwick, Brooklyn. Listen to over 10,000 episodes of food radio and become a member at heritageradionetwork.org.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content and to hear about exclusive events, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at heritage_radio. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be a part of the food world's most innovative community? Rate the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join our community by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.